agenda item 5B, rapid rehousing progress report. This was for noting. We go straight into agenda item 5C. This report is for information, and I'd like to welcome Leighton for welfare rights. Am I right there? Yeah, Leighton's
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Welcome. Leighton, I haven't seen you for a while.
No.
So if you just want to go on to a brief introduction to the report, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief, Chair. Thank you very much. I also introduced Josh Finan, who's currently the interim manager of the unit. The report, as you say, is for information. It's simply to provide an overview, really, of the work undertaken by the Welfare Rights Unit. Often goes unnoticed, but it outlines the activity and also some of the challenges for the future for the unit. I won't go into any. I hope members have had a chance to read the report. I won't go into it any further, but we happily take any questions if there are any.
Well, firstly, I think it's the report. I know it's brief, but I personally think that you and the team do an absolutely amazing job. And even though it's not a statutory service, I think it's more of a priority than some statutory services that we do have, if I'm being honest. I see it rather than a cost. I see it more of an income generation for us, and the benefits to the residents of Neath Talbot is priceless. So for me, that it's a service that we could never be without, if I'm being honest. And don't think that you go unnoticed, because I think a lot of us, unknown to you, rely on you as well and refer people into you. The only one thing that I would say is that I would like to see you up in my ward, because it's not mentioned here and I haven't seen you in my ward. So that's all. So I know that probably most of the others will actually want you up their wards too. So maybe we'll get a rotor on that one, Leighton. So I'll just take other questions for you now. Is there any other questions? I don't think there is, Leighton. I think there was one point that I can hear you, but I just can't see you all the time, Carol.
Well, my camera is on. Can anyone else see me?
I know, it's just my eyes. Yeah, coming in.
I don't know, you can't see me, Charlotte, but they could hear me. My mouth's big enough.
Yeah.
So a question I have, I mean, on the back of what Charlotte has said, I don't know how many people I've referred to your service. I mean, I've lost count now over the years. And it says in the report itself on page 85 that this is becoming more and more difficult for us to access due to our budget constraints, both internally and externally. And then financial impacts. There's no financial impacts, but I very often disagree with the way that the financial impacts are put into reports, because without the revenue the stakeholders are having, then that would cause a financial impact. And if there was a danger of losing it, do we have the data to show what the knock-on effect will have on the authority if there are loads and loads of people out there not claiming the benefits they need and end up relying on our services? And I thank you for the great work you do. I send everyone to you.
Thanks, Councillor. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's very difficult to actually put a figure on it, but clearly it's a preventative service which takes the pressure off frontline services. So it does allow people to become more self-sufficient, and less than pressure on direct services. But it also allows our direct service officers to do their day job, so they can get on with that while the Welfare Rights Unit deal with the benefits and advice and support around that. We actually had a discussion this morning with officers around trying to gauge and almost put a figure on that. So watch this space. We'll do a piece of work around that and feedback to you.
Timely question then. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because it is an income generation for us. If obviously it means testing and things like that, if you can get the more money from other sources, then obviously it saves us money then as well. So if I just go straight over to Helen.
Right, I better declare here, I work for a charity as a benefits advisor. So I wanted to ask about work with charities, because I think some charities, like say for instance Parkinson's UK or whatever, are very knowledgeable. Their advisors are very knowledgeable about the condition and condition specific things. Do you refer out to these charities for maybe when there is something like a specific complicated condition, such as say Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's probably best if I come in there.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, we do have a directory list where we signpost for certain conditions, and I actually attended the World Stroke event the other day in Talbot last Friday. So we look into network and make links, and if there is, especially like things like mind, stuff like that, when people come in mental health, we can signpost there. But I don't think we've particularly got one for Parkinson's at the moment, but it's certainly something that I can look into, and I can look at expanding, you know, charities and organizations that we can sort of network with and then sort of signpost appropriately to.
Okay, thanks. My other question is, and it's probably not in the report because we didn't ask for it, but what's the sort of current waiting times for say from a referral to an application or some advice or a benefits assessment to work out what people are entitled to? How long are people waiting at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, if it's for a benefits check, for example, they're usually done within, I'd say, 48 hours. If it's a support with an application, so to complete the form, at the moment, our surgeries are fully booked, usually 2 weeks in advance, so there is sort of a waiting time of around 2 weeks, but we will try and, if someone's up against deadlines, try and fit them in and accommodate them quicker where we can. And in terms from when we've done the applications with the individual, the waiting times for an outcome tend to be about 3 months on average.
Right, thanks. And the other thing I wanted to know is, because I noticed you put how much money you've realised and things like that in there. Do you monitor like success rates for like initial application, mandatory reconsideration? And I know you've got the tribunal details in, you've got 93%. But do you monitor at what stage? Because I sometimes find that's quite helpful to see how the DWP are thinking at the time as well.
Yeah, we don't actually have that sort of data at the moment, but it's something that I could certainly look into. It's just trying to find the time to put towards that, but maybe we could look at implementing something in our case management system that would help us with gathering that data quicker.
Right, thank you.
I think Ellen raised a really good point there, because one thing I did notice is when you put the money on page 84, welfare rights have raised 12,437,000. I think sometimes in reports, a lot of people scan them quickly. I think that needs to be a bit more figures in tables and highlight it in a bright red or a bright green for people to see a lot, stand out a lot more, because that is tremendous amount of money, obviously that just a small team have actually brought in. Again, Helen says about some data and that, again, if you look more around collating data and how you present data for the, and I know it's a bit time consuming maybe, but I think once you set it up and you can claim it back, when you actually give us reports then going forward, like when it's budget times or things like that, sometimes then maybe looking at increasing, like as you say, you've got a 2-week waiting list to come and see you in certain areas. Not many people can say that really, but welfare rights, they're always looking for welfare rights advice residents are. So again, I think the layout of a report, I do know the reports are changing, Tom, and I, but again, that's just an observation that is obviously going forward.
Yeah, thanks very much. And you'll know, Chair, that I never make political comments. But as the Director of Social Services, I firstly say brilliant work from the welfare rights team. I think absolutely really important for this local authority area. But I would say that it's absolutely a travesty, as far as I'm concerned, that we have a benefit system that is so convoluted that without the help of welfare rights, that our local people would be losing £12.5 million worth of support that they should be having.
And that's in the local economy as well, isn't it?
So I just wanted to say that
Yeah.
bit, but absolutely, the welfare rights team are fantastic.
Yeah. Totally agree. Did you want to come back in on anything?
No, I just wanted to say what a great job you're doing as well. Oh, yeah, well, I kind of answered that.
All right,
Yeah.
okay, Ducky. Okay, right, okay. Well, thank you both. Hope to see you soon. This report is for information, and it's also for noting. So I'm going to move straight on to agenda item 6A. This report is for information also, and in fairness, Rebecca, you have actually been very patient waiting. Rebecca is obviously Chris Ray Davis, obviously with you also this report, yeah. I take it Rebecca is stepping in for Chris.
So it's
safeguarding.
Yeah, so this is the NPT annual safeguarding report, which reflects the activity of children's and adult services between 2024-25. So we've got Rebecca Jones, who I am pleased. Rebecca is our adult services in the team manager in the adult services safeguarding team, who's coming on leave, as Chris, as you just mentioned, has gone on to become the new head of children's services for Pembrokeshire.
And I think we need to put it on record as well. A big thank you to Chris. I know lots of members haven't had the chance to say so long, but he was a fantastic asset to the team. He will be missed, but I think it's a really good opportunity, and he'll be fantastic in his new role as well down there.
Yeah. And Lucy, who's already introduced herself, who is principal officer, who will be reporting into this board some safeguarding information going forward. So it's both Rebecca and myself that will be covering it, as obviously Chris left last Friday.
Yeah, that's okay. Right, okay, so we're going to give a briefing on the report to Rebecca.
Do you want to just pick out the highlights? Perhaps if we do you want, Rebecca, did you want to start with adult services, or are you happy for us to start with children's?
I'm either way, Kerry, I'm happy.
Go on then.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of children's services, the report outlines quite a number of activities. So we could see that there was consistent reporting levels, and most concerns related to care home settings and individuals over the age of 65. It was notable that there was 13% of reports progressed to section 126 inquiries. However, only 25% of those required protective action. But that did raise questions about whether thresholds for intervention are set correctly across the agencies, and that's something we'll need to explore. In terms of the deprivation of liberty safeguards, we have challenges still in terms of funding from Welsh Government to cover staffing levels, and we do use agency, and there's national backlogs, which reflects in the CIW report in 2023 to 2024, and the variation in referral numbers. We do have breaches, and that is mainly due to the agency work that we have to use, where they can be significantly overdue. It is noted in there as well about a spike in May, which Chris had mentioned about warranting further investigation. However, this successfully is because the backlog was cleared, and we should see that translate now in the 2024 to 2025 CIW annual report. And of course, we might be moving towards the liberty protection safeguards as announced by the government earlier this month, which then will hopefully ease pressures around the reforms then for the protection of individuals where the liberty needs to be deprived. In terms of the challenges for individuals residing in the community, of course, LPS will alleviate those as well. But currently our application numbers are low and the process remains arduous with limited opportunities for streamlining. So we would welcome LPS if this does come into fruition following the consultation early next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
If we move on to children's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just I suppose to summarise, we've Chris has really helpfully put the report together for us on behalf of us as a directorate, and just to kind of pick up on some of the points he's raised around children's services. As members will know and Scrutiny will know, we've seen a steady increase in our referral rates since the pandemic and over the last several years. We take time to scrutinise those things and to reflect on our referral rates that come into the service and what that means for us. We work quite closely with partners in relation to the quality of the reports that we get and the thresholding that happens as well to make sure that there's multi-agency decisions that takes place. It's pleasing to note that we have a steady number in our child protection register and in our children looked after, and we continue to work quite effectively with our partners to have a rigor in the system to ensure that children are protected and safe, and that we have proportionate packages of support around our families, that we support our most vulnerable families. There are some recommendations in Chris's report towards the end, reflecting on an understanding of understanding of the impact of the increase in our referral rates, which we do all the time, which we do consistently with both our staff and our partner agencies. And that work does include training opportunities as well across agencies. So, for example, with midwifery, we go out and spend time with our midwife colleagues to make sure we're getting referrals at the right time when they have presenting issues at pregnancy, at booking, and with our education colleagues to make sure we're picking up those right levels of support from early intervention and prevention support that we get there and get in there as early and as quickly as we can, all the way through to safeguarding.
Before we open it up to questions, I think all I would add is that it is an opportunity in terms of us to looking at how we look at safeguarding across the directorate and how we work more closely together. So just looking at, and hearing some of the, these are the same families and the same people. So, we're taking it as an opportunity to go back to our roots, to start working much more closely together. And you see us bringing reports to you in the future, which very much looks at how our key partners sit around the table with all of us, look at case examples and come up with some sensible way forward of how we can improve the quality of lives for children and families and vulnerable people within Neath and Talbot. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Right, Stephanie, she's having trouble with her headset at the moment. So the question is, the report identifies a gap in understanding of the link between poverty and inequality with child sexual abuse. What work is being done to address this gap of understanding? It's also written in the chat bar on the computer.
Would you give us page number?
Do you have a page 103?
Sorry, Chair, I'm not online. Can you just repeat the question for it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're online, you?
No, I'm not online. Sorry, I'm not joining the meeting.
Right, yeah. The report identifies a gap in understanding of the link between poverty and inequality with child sexual abuse. What work is being done to address this gap of understanding? So it's the first paragraph. Rarely is poverty or inequality identified in the work undertaken across CSC or ASC, and this gap in practice will need to be understood and addressed. This includes the development of a suite of data. Have you found it?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
If I can come in first, if that's okay. So we've done a lot of work in relation to the impact of poverty and what that means for our families. So as you all know, there's been an increase in the cost of living crisis. And as we've seen from the work done by our colleagues in welfare rights, there's a lot of support that's required for our families to make sure that they're claiming the correct benefits and have the right income coming into their homes. It's important for us to recognize the difference between what impact poverty has to what impact something like neglect might have when it comes to child protection or something like child sexual abuse. We have a lot of, we have recently invested in a cohort of staff who've gone through a training looking at child sexual abuse. So we've got child sexual abuse experts in the service now in children's services who take lead and work quite closely with our partners like Bernardo's, so our third sector organizations, to ensure that we have a better understanding of what it means to what impact there is on a child when there is child sexual abuse, and how that relates to their understanding their own identity and their lived experiences and what support goes in around them, and how that overlays with poverty. I don't think we can necessarily say there's a correlation between poverty and child sexual abuse. I don't think we could say there's a causation between poverty and child sexual abuse. And it's something we're still looking at and trying to understand a little bit better. Child sexual abuse is an area of our service that we continue to develop and we continue to perfect our kind of expertise around with links to our third-party organizations and our own kind of training of our staff.
Okay.
Don't know if that
Stephanie,
answers the
can you come
question.
back on that, Stephanie?
Yeah. Can you hear me at all through the camera, or is it not working?
Yeah, we
Oh,
can hear
okay.
you.
Yeah, sorry, my headset microphone isn't working. I don't know why. Yeah, I wasn't trying to say that there was a link between poverty and child sexual abuse, but the report mentions that, and it mentioned that there was a lack of understanding. So I just found it interesting that there was an identification over a lack of understanding, but not a clear approach on how we seek to, fill that gap. I just found that quite interesting.
And I think what we're talking about is starting to collect data, and we'll analyse that data and then bring that to you in a future report.
Okay. Obviously, Steph mentioned now, obviously in the report about the child abuse and that. What about those adults who have suffered child abuse themselves, but only actually contact us maybe in adulthood? What support or services do we have to support them individuals?
Well, I come in first, I'll bring it in there. I think what we are good at is being very sensitive, where often care experienced adults will come back into the service and ask to see their files. And that requires a lot more thought than just sitting down with a young adult. And sometimes, maybe years have passed before they've felt able to come and look at very sensitive information. It's not easy because so much of that information is redacted, and often that leaves them very frustrated. But obviously we look at, we base that on legal advice. But having the expertise within the service in terms of the social workers will sit with people that have come back into the service to ask to hear and read more about their story is something that we prioritise. And we're often in a position then to help support them to take advice and have support from other agencies. So that's certainly something that we do. And I don't know whether you wanted to add anything to that in terms of what we do from a children's services position.
Right, okay. But what my question was more about the adult that hasn't been in our services at all, but then obviously comes in as an adult that obviously they were abused as a child. Okay.
So sorry, Rebecca, did you want to come in?
Yes,
Yeah.
please, Andrew. I just wanted to note that it depends if they've got care and support needs and they're allocated a social worker. We'd look at what options are there. But New Pathways is an excellent service that supports individuals who's experienced sexual abuse, whether that's been a current incident or historically, and they work really well with adults. Equally, some individuals might have input from the community mental health team and access any sort of therapies and counselling via the CMHTs also.
Yeah, so yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So the third sector organisations who would be and have got a lot of expertise in dealing with that. It's not a referral into social services on its own. If there are other co-occurring issues like mental health, drug use, etc., then of course we would pick that up. As Rebecca said, it would be based on the assessment of care and support needs.
Okay.
But otherwise it wouldn't be a referral into us.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I come back on some of the
Yeah.
answers? I've got several questions on this particular item. The first thing I was going to ask was, in one of your answers about the sexual abuse, did we not have specialists in our service on child sexual abuse? It sounded like you were talking about a new development. Surely not.
Well, social workers are trained in terms of child protection training, and that training would include, I think what's happened is that need, the need to have workers specialising in sexual abuse is something that we've recognised we needed to have more expertise in. So that's why we've brought in and trained up staff that who really are supporting children and families in that way.
It's just that we used to have, obviously we've got children in care as well, and we used to have the figures of child sexual abuse. I just, come into corporate parenting, I just assumed, I assumed that we had specialists in that.
So as Kerry said, all social workers are trained around child sexual abuse, so absolutely, but there will be a spectrum of expertise as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
So you've always had the social workers who are the experts, and you can add expertise into it, and I guess that's what Nuna is talking about, which is actually that further more in-depth understanding of whatever the issues are.
Those children will always have had a referral to that expert. This isn't something new, Andrew.
No, well, as I say, we've always had the expertise, but this is about. I don't know the exact training that they've had, but this will be those workers who've invested in that will be advising our workforce as and when needed. And yes, we have always had that sort of expertise.
We've always had
around.
that service. Oh, right, okay. And you said about collecting data, I think, collating or collecting data, Kerry. Kerry, would we have not had that data previously?
I think it's something that we need, it sort of runs through the report. It's something that I think we've recognised that we need more of, to get that sort of understanding. So we've always had data. I think, to be honest, in children's services, our performance information has been very good. But I think we recognise it now that there's certain areas where we need to be spending more time to analyse that, sort of better to make more sense of, as you said, that sort of when you talk about poverty and sexual abuse, it takes time, and we do need perhaps officers to be freed up to make more sense of that.
So I go back to corporate parenting, because we used to have those figures years ago, and we used to have the discrete groups. So, I was just surprised that it seemed like something new.
Jeff, yeah. So it's the nuance approach there. So yes, we've still got all that data that we used to have, and we use that on a day-to-day basis as far as managing the services are concerned. But I guess what we're developing at the moment is something which goes above and beyond that, which is overlaying lots of different data that we've got. So when we talked about overlaying the poverty information, so what impact is if we mapped out poverty across the local authority? What's the correlation between that and different abuse categories across the county? So it's trying to understand it in the wider sense of the other determinants of people's health. So it's just going that extra. We're trying to go that extra mile to try and understand it on lots of different levels. So we've not lost any of that information.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Do
you.
you want to come in?
Yeah, I've got another question for you as well, Uni. If I could ask that,
Yeah,
you can answer it all at once. You mentioned about breaches with agencies. Are you talking about paperwork there?
Breaches.
Somebody mentioned breaches.
Yeah, you mentioned B.
Oh, you did, Kerry. Breaches with agency work.
Oh, no, that was Rebecca.
Rebecca, was it? Whoever it was, I just wondered what the breaches were with the agencies. Is it paperwork?
So that's in regards to the deprivation of liberties, the standard authorisations.
Yeah.
So when we're allocating cases, we have to still use agency workers. Whilst we've made significant reductions in our use of agency, we have built a pool of sessional workers. There are times and limitations where we do have to use agency workers, and we set deadlines on times that might mean that they don't return them in a timely manner for us to be able to authorise, and there can be a fall down then between somebody's authorisation ending and then the new one being authorised. We've got a very clear plan of how we manage the signatory body work, and that we ensure as soon as they're received from the agency, they're authorised in a timely manner to reduce that gap of anybody being unlawfully deprived.
So Rebecca, is it a safety net if we haven't had any correspondence back? Do we have a process by which we know we haven't had something back so we can actually go back to them?
Yes, we keep a clear audit trail of any prompts and reminders of the date and the deadline, and chasing those deadlines, and that's accurately reflected then in the authorisation of the deprivation of liberty form 5 as well.
And then that's reported to us then in the figures, isn't it? Okay, thanks for that. I'll start with my
Thank
questions.
Yes, there's no one from back
I
in
was
first.
just going to say, just as I suppose, an example, we've always, as Andrew said, we've always captured data like children on child protection order for sexual abuse, for example. So that's always been information we have captured. I think what the report also references MAST, the multi-agency safeguarding. Yeah, and when we talk about overlaying data, it's something that's a really good example of how we're doing that. And we've recently gone into communication with our community safety partners around overlaying some of the LIFT data and the poverty data over our safeguarding information to be able to pick up on those themes and trends and things. So I suppose what we were trying to say was that's the work we want to do as a next step. So we've always captured that information. We've always had that data, but we're trying to now create a forum where we bring them together, overlay them on top of each other, like the MAST being a very good example of how we're trying to do that, to better understand some of those trends and themes and things, and how we can target more of our support in a more specialised way.
I was just making sure that the children had access to specialists.
Yes,
they do. Right. On page 92 in the executive summary, I've got two questions on that particular area. You talk about significant increase in contact, yet our CPR, the Child Protection Register, remain the same, stable. I bring it up by here now because, as you said earlier, that there are things which come up later on, which all seems a bit mixed up. And I was going to actually mention about the fact that I really would like, going forward, children's data and information discrete, so that it's not combined with adult data, because it's very confusing, you know, for somebody.
And a number of members said that.
Reading this, it's very confusing, you know, and for clarity, and with it being such an important issue, you know, if it could be reported discreetly, I'd appreciate that. So there's a significant increase, which later on you go to, and yeah, I think you mentioned it, Noonie, it was 25%. But the CPR remained the same. So is there clarity around that one? And shall I ask my second question and then whatever? Right, so the second one then, it's a bit further down and it talks about MAST. Who is ultimately responsible for the governance? And it talks about the need for improved data analytics. Now, are we talking about the presentation of data as well and the analytics? And can you just clarify and expand on that?
My best, absolutely. So if I take your first question, in terms of the steady increase in the referral rates we've seen certainly into children's front door, because I think there's slightly more stability into the referrals we've seen in the adults front door. I think what we have seen is an increase in people coming to us for early offers of help, for access to some of our early intervention and prevention platforms and services, and for example, our team around the family, some of our more preventative lower level support, as we were calling it, but more of a care and support element. I think what we have done is we've done a lot of work around supporting and putting out messages with both our partner agencies and the family that we support, that we're not here as I think social services, certainly children's services, can sometimes carry a bad reputation. People don't always want the social worker involved, whereas we've done a lot of work with partners and with our families to show that we are actually a supportive organization. We are here to support families to prevent kind of escalation or any kind of deterioration in the home. So our front door has served in an increase in our information, advice and assistance role that we hold as well, which is a big part of what we do in children's services. And we have to remember that all of our referrals, even for preventative services, come through SPOC. So it's not just safeguarding referrals that come through SPOC, it's all of our IAA referrals that come through SPOC as well. And we have seen an increase as part of data trend of people self-referring to children's services as well.
Yes, just that within that 25%, on page 97, this is when I'm talking about correlation. Further on, it actually says that the 25% includes CSA, domestic violence and abuse. And I thought that that might affect CPR, but it doesn't seem to have, which is very strange.
I guess what I would say to that is our child protection numbers they're not stagnant numbers, they're not spec numbers. So obviously they're constantly reviewed, aren't they, in terms of children who are on the child protection register, children who get referred to the child protection register, children who might be deregistered because families have made progress and they've come down, kind of are being supported on a more preventative plan. So that number, although might remain stable when we're reporting on a quarterly basis or a 6-monthly basis, does kind of change as we review our families' plans and things.
Off and on, you would talk about children coming off and on then?
Yes, as part of the role that the family plays. But what I would also say in terms of the referrals coming into the service, even though they might come in where we've got some of those domestic violence concerns, or we have concerns for mental health and things, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a safeguarding risk. What that means is that the family has a support need, and we will put in the interventions that we have and that they proportionately need to try to manage and mitigate some of those risks, work alongside the families in a strength-based way.
It goes back to my point about child sexual abuse, surely, because that's mentioned in page 97. Surely that would instigate a second look at a child needed to go on the CPR.
But I suppose
Sorry, we're not because you all come from the same background. I think it's just to say very quickly, what we have done really well is recognise when children are hurt outside of the family home. So that would be in there as well, isn't it? So in terms of the register, if we've got a child, say for example, a child that's been sexually abused by someone, maybe a family member, or maybe not, that doesn't live at home with that family, then we would risk it. And that wouldn't necessarily mean that child would be registered, because the people looking after that child isn't, not involved in the abuse.
Yeah.
So that is something.
But if we could have explanation on that next time.
Yes, that would be
25%
Yeah.
and looking at action, being proactive, and then that.
Yeah.
Because right the way through it talks about having the lowest number CPR and it's being stable, and so that's what prompted that question.
Yeah, no problem.
But the second part was about the mast. Who's ultimately responsible for the governance there, and can you expand on the talking about the data analytics? In which way are we changing all that? It says there's a need for improved data analytics.
Yeah, and there is. I mean, I guess it's it's something that's been it's very much needed, and something that I think when we get to this point really in terms of having that tracker, right? So in terms of when you look at inquiries when children have been hurt, so much is talked about in terms of the lack of information sharing, the lack of communication between agencies. So this has been developed as a genuine collaboration with agencies to improve all of that. And I think we've got to this point, but there will need to be probably more investment, more resource put into MAST if that is going to be successful going forward. And I think that's the point that.
So who's ultimately responsible? Is it for the governance then?
Yeah. So at the moment it's the West Westmoreland Safeguarding Board. So it's at a very early stage at the moment, MAST, but we are asking for that to be developed. I would say that in all of this, when we talk about the enhanced data collection, we're probably at the forefront, certainly in Wales, probably the UK, of trying to look at, well, actually, what are the wider impact on abuse of children and adults of things like poverty, drug use, mental health, etc. So we're mapping those sort of things out. That's not been done anywhere else. Trying to share information from the police, from health, from the third sector, and pulling all of that information together. That's not been done anywhere else before. to my knowledge, certainly not across Wales. So everyone in Wales is looking to us to say, how is this working? MAST in itself is, it's pretty straightforward as a concept, but it's really complicated to actually do. But it's really about getting the information around agency involvement, so police involvement, health involvement, third sector involvement, local authority involvement, so that all of those agencies, if they've got any concerns at any point, can actually have a look and see who's been involved and when. That's been talked about for decades, whilst I've been in the business, and we've never got that right. And so MAST is an opportunity for us to start to move in that right direction as far as I'm concerned.
So is this tied in with turning the tide? Because on page 97, when it talks about the adult safeguarding, there's a number of issues there that arose in turning the tide. And I thought it might have been helpful if we'd had the minutes of our previous meeting with the turning of the tide, because obviously there's going to be a lot of things coming forward from that tie in with this, which goes to actually working together. But obviously, with all agencies coming to work together, we need to have a robust system for that to happen. So I know we're not expecting the report back for that until March, away with all the recommendations of what we are going to do as a council. So that's clearly tied into that, yeah?
It will be tied into that, yeah. But as I say, this is cutting edge stuff. This is not straightforward at all. There's all sorts of GDPR issues that we're trying to work through, etc. That's why it hasn't been done over the last number of decades. So we are working through that. As I say, we're at the forefront of that in this region. So yeah, we can keep you involved at how that progresses, and we will be updated when we update the turning the tide.
That's exciting, that is, I think, because that's what's been needed for years and years and years. And again, it's legislation that's actually overcoming it. Now, everything with IT and AI and everything now, from what I know of, lots of systems, lots of people can access at different levels, like in the police system, different level can access different passcodes, etc. So I've never been able to understand why, like, it could have been shared, and I take on GDPR, etc. However, if we're all working together and that, why couldn't just the organisations have their passwords at different levels to access certain information? So I think over the years they've overcomplicated it and then prevented us moving forward, going up. But again, that's legislation as well from above. So obviously it's not a legislation day for me today.
No, but the point I was making is that as we go forward, that we work, because obviously you're going to have to work with the other agencies, we work together to actually have a successful outcome. That's otherwise we're doing it on our own. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, absolutely. But if we can achieve this, it'd be a major step forward in identifying child abuse, sharing information around all of that, safeguarding children and adults.
So on page 99 at the bottom there, it says, I just want clarity on this really. It says it should also be noted that families must agree to a partner agency referring them in the preventative services, so that this total number is encouraging. This is a trend we would wish to see continue. I want to know if we see a need and the family doesn't agree to referring, what do we do?
Yeah, and I think that's where we are particularly skilled, right? So that that I stand by that statement. So we are always, not just often, dealing with situations where families may be reluctant to engage with us. You've got counsellors or partner agency or family member that's worried. We've made contact with the family, and the family saying, "Thanks very much, don't be worried, and we don't want to talk to you. We don't want to to be assessed." And I think that's where the workforce is particularly skilled, because you don't want to be left in a position where we haven't got a proper understanding of what's going on the one hand. On the other hand, families have a right to say, we don't want, unless you're coming in here with a child protection hat on, we don't have to work with you. And then you've got the person making the referral saying, well, that's all well and good, we're still worried. And I think, to be honest, as a service, that's where we have bridged that gap. So in the majority of cases, we are able to shift that family's position, harder to reach families. You know, you're talking high-end stuff that may just sit underneath child protection, it's borderline. And I would say in the majority of cases, we are able to do that. If we're not, and the referrer is still concerned, then we would have, you know, we have to take a view then as to whether, which is a professional judgment, having spoken to others about whether we're able to raise that into, push that into a child protection arena, because that is the only way that we would be able to continue without the permission of the family.
And that's my concern here. I just want to know that the waiting is for the child, and the waiting, if the parents decide not to shift, that the waiting is for the child and action will be taken.
So I guess what I would probably say to that is consent is a very important thing for us, because we find that we always get better outcomes when we have families working alongside us and they're consenting to work with us. The child always remains the focus of everything that we do and every plan that we put in place. We often get teachers, health visitors, kind of colleagues in the third sector ringing us for advice, asking us for information, talking us through kind of some of their worries, and we will give them information and advice around whether that's signposting, whether that is kind of actually, you know, you need to put a referral into us, we need to have a more closer look at that. But we're often engaging in those conversations at a very early stage with partners who don't necessarily know whether or not something should become a referral into social services, or if it's just something they need to signpost for. We often get referrals in where partners may not have had consent from a family member. We will still contact that family. We will still do those respective lateral checks. We will still link in with the families and still do safety planning with the families if it's appropriate. And we are, as Carrie said, particularly skilled in getting families on side with us to work with us. But if at any point we become worried that parents are putting blockers up, but we're actually worried about that child in that home, we will still progress to an assessment. It's not solely based on consent. But what I would say is we don't often come across that problem. It isn't often where we have to override essentially the consent of a parent to go out and do an assessment because they haven't been willing to engage with us. We're often able to talk them around.
But there are occasions where that happens, but you will put the weight in on the child.
Yes, absolutely. Child always remains the focus of everything that we do.
Okay, I've got just two questions left. One on page 100. Where we've got the table there on table 1, I would just ask going forward if we could have a summary of table 1 rather than it referring us to table 2.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can see there's a spike there in July, but again, there's no information given. Why was there a spike?
I have to go back into the numbers.
Right, if we could,
just to get the story, I suppose.
if that could come back to us, take too much time now. If that comes back to us, if we all corporate parenting, ideal situation, if the summary could be put or synopsis underneath there. And I've just got, I think, one more question, which is on page 110 under corporate safeguarding group, the CSG. It talks there, Andrew, it says the group has continued to meet regularly across the directorates of NPG. A development morning was held to revise the current corporate safeguarding policy and to revise the current terms of reference. So if everything's working so well, what are we revising and why do we need to revise it?
We have to. So
right.
Yes.
So what has changed then? What are you actually changing in the terms of reference?
To be honest.
And the safeguarding policy?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we've talked about this group before, and I think it's a special group in that it is represented, all council is represented in that group, and it's a very proactive group. We have put together, I think it predated me maybe, in terms of the terms of reference, what that group is about, it was something like 10 years old or whatever. So it's simply because it was, you know, it needed revision because it didn't reflect the current attendees and what our priorities were, you know. So that was the reason for that.
So which bits have we changed?
It's definitely in relation to attendance, which come into that group. And I can bring back that I can't remember, to be honest, in terms
So
of
I just would
anything
like,
else.
yeah,
Yeah,
just think.
more
either
information in
this-
terms of that, yeah.
Or this committee or corporate parenting, but I think it would be good to know what the terms of reference are for that policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, guys, I'm going to rush this up because it's Stephanie Grimshaw, no putting pressure on you, Steph, but when she leaves, we won't be going home. So, Sharon has
Sorry
Karen.
about
It's all right, I forgive you.
I did
Karen, if you could question quick, because Sharon covered it, because I think she covered the entire paper.
No,
Haven't
Yeah,
you?
it was took an awful long
That's okay.
time, and I've got to go. But there you are. On page 98, the training, it said significantly better and take up at safeguarding training across the directorates is on the ascendancy. Isn't it compulsory? If not, why not? And shouldn't nearly everyone in the council have had some kind of safeguarding training?
Yeah, so safeguarding training is mandatory. And I think something that came out really of just as out of interest, that came out of the Eston inspection, which is information that has gone into our corporate safeguarding group, was that governors, safeguarding training for governors, it isn't mandatory. So when Eston recently came in, there was a low number of governors that had actually gone on that safeguarding training, despite there being real effort from education for them to attend. That was something we've now picked up, so that will now be monitored through the corporate safeguarding group. But in terms of social work staff, safeguarding training of social workers is mandatory.
You okay with that, Karen?
Not really, no. It says it's on the ascendancy, which doesn't give me much comfort, to be quite honest with you. How many people haven't received it then, and why? I mean, excluding governors.
Well, I can certainly bring information back for you, councillor, but in terms of social workers having safeguarding training, all social workers would have that safeguarding training. But I will bring information back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of our people not in social services have contact with, all ages of people that will have safeguarding issues. And if everyone is trained properly, they can signpost things earlier and things get resolved sooner, the outcome's better for the person. So, I mean, if all social workers hadn't had this training, and I really would have been terrified, but I didn't think that was the case. But we need to look at who does need it, and I think that to even a small level, if all staff should have that.
Can I just stop you there, because a lot of that goes toward it, that does as well. And I'm just conscious of time, I am, because we obviously will have to like stop, and we won't be able
I
to
have been
continue.
waiting patiently, Chair, to be fair. I have to leave as well.
In fairness, I asked Sharon to cover safeguarding item because that's her bag. So that's how she goes along. She asks for on behalf of all of us.
That's fine, but
don't
if I've got a question, I've
Right, can we just
I've
move
read
on? We're on
I've read
time
the
now.
papers. I say it is nice if I have time to ask it. Thank you.
Right, okay. Andrew, do you want to come in?
Just reassure Councillor Clement Williams, I think she's gone now, but that if she wants to, she can call in. She can call in some figures on amount training, etc. We can have a look at that.
Calling now, Chair. Sorry.
Right, okay.
So stop, she's gone.
Yeah, because you've gone now. We've got to stop.
I think, Chair, if we maybe stop the recording for a second, I'll just see if I can call Councillor back, and also I know Councillor Hayley Williams said she was going to try and rejoin.
Oh, Hayley's back.
Oh, there
Hayley's
are.
back,
Right,
yeah.
we are now calling again. There.
Right, thanks, Hayley, for coming back. Right, okay. So we're done now. That's it. That was the final question there. So I'm just going to go on.
We note the report, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, and hold on. Right, this report is for noting. I'm going to go straight on to agenda item 6C. I'm not going to ask for briefings on this because it's quite straightforward. And Sharon, you have a question.
Do I?
performance reports.
I was just, is this the one about turning the tide? I was just wondering why that wasn't the scrutiny review.
Oh, yes, no task.
Yeah, it's in March. I think we asked for the report back in March. I don't think anything.
Yeah, it's on the forward work programme, but it's down for January. I think it's an error, so it's supposed to be March, that's all.
No problem.
Right, okay, again, this report has been open. I go straight into dash 6B. 6B. Sorry, I've crossed that out. Yeah, agenda item 6B. This also is for reporting. Again, I'm not going to ask for a brief on this, but Oliver, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions actually on 6B. I'll make it brief. On page 177, it shows the safeguarding data. It shows where there's referrals made and referrals accepted. Now, less than half of the referrals have been accepted. Are the ones who are not accepted signposted elsewhere? That's one question. The other question is on page 184, 185, where you got the West Glamorgan Safeguarding Children and Adult Board. There's a list of members there that agree to attend to 75% of the meetings. Now, looking at the attendance, we got 3 at 25%. There's 1 at 75%, all the others done 100%, and there's 1 at 0%. Are they compelled to do that, attend when they've signed up to it?
Answer the second one first. I might need the first one repeated. So absolutely. So we monitor attendance and we chase up where agencies aren't attending as they've agreed. Normally that's because of vacancies within their services, but that's not a good enough excuse. I absolutely accept that. So the answer is yes, we are always chasing those agencies. It's not appropriate for other agencies not to be attending.
You need Oliver to repeat the question.
Yeah.
Oliver, can you repeat the question, please?
What, the first one again?
Yeah.
Where am I? Right. On page 177, it's got the safeguarding data. Now, it shows that there's 125 referrals made for the years 24-25, but there's only 59 referrals accepted. Is there a reason why the referrals not accepted? And if they're not accepted, are they signposted to other agencies?
Okay. So this looks like the area planning board.
We'll have to stop it. Is she back? Yes, she's back. Well done, Aileen. Yeah, she's back in. So go on, carry on.
Councillor Davis, sorry, can I just ask you to stay on the call as long as you can, just because as soon as you drop out, we're no longer core-rate. So if you could remain in the call, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
No pressure, Hayley.
Yeah, my signal's dropping in and out all the time. It is, sorry.
Okay.
I understand.
Let's come back in. We'll wait for you, but we're nearly over anyway.
Okay, so really quickly, this looks like data from the area planning board. Where there are referrals made, they will be discussed with the agencies receiving the referral, and it will be then decided whether that is a referral that should be accepted or whether it's be signposted elsewhere. And so that's why those figures are so different. 59 referrals were accepted, 125 might be advice, it might have been signposted elsewhere, or something else. I don't know, Julia, whether you're aware of what that is from the area planning board.
Well, that would be when our key workers within our substance use services are referring into whether our safeguarding concerns, so they make referrals in, they are then assessed and either accepted or rejected. Obviously, I wouldn't know as a commissioner, the ins and outs of those referrals, but that's what those that data represents.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and if I just call Ellen in now for another question.
Yeah, it's going on these accepted and not accepted. Do you have discussions with these organisations about what the thresholds for safeguarding would be? Because I'm assuming they're phoning you because they think that their client or whatever has met the threshold. So do they have a right of appeal if they disagree with you, or
Yeah.
what?
So yes, they could escalate if they want. I mean, we don't get that very often. But we do have escalation processes. So if someone says, no, absolutely, we disagree with your assessment, we want this to be raised to your manager, then they would do that. Absolutely. And yes, we do brief them on what is an acceptable referral, but there'll be a number of agencies who are ringing up because they want some reassurance. So they're sharing with us whatever the story is because they're concerned and they want some reassurance from a professional that actually, you know, these are the steps that you could take rather than accepting the referral as a safeguarding referral.
Okay. And I was wondering as well, if you do you monitor the referrals that maybe you've turned down or you've both agreed haven't got to the threshold, if you like? Do you monitor whether they're represented, if you know what I mean? Is there other figures on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call those contacts. We're recording those as contacts, not progressed to referral. But in children's services, for instance, there are 3 contacts that then it gets reviewed by a manager, and that might be because the number of contacts that actually moves through to a referral. So yes, we do monitor those.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, so again, the report is for Norton.
So just Julia Jenkins who's got her hand up as well.
Right, okay, Julia. Let's try and make it quick this afternoon.
Yes, it will be.
Settled on me.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to come back on the substance use referrals in around their training. So they all receive training on safeguarding and what would warrant a referral or not. And there is excellent partnership working between social services and our specialist commissioned services. So as Andrew said, there are conversations going on there for advice and guidance. And we audit, as a commissioning team, we audit our services training levels, especially in safeguarding.
Excellent, thank you, Julia. Marvellous. Right, if we go on to agenda item 7, we will now go through the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. Tom, do you want to do it?
Yes.
Do it as quick as you can then. Speed, no pressure.
I know I've given members some other updates outside of the meeting itself, so I'll just run through the changes just for the benefit of members and public. So just in terms of changes to the Forward Work Programme, for the 25th of November meeting, the domiciliary care service update report is moved to that meeting. The 11th of December meeting has the hospital discharge report, which has been added. And the update report on purchase of properties has been deleted from the 11th of December meeting, as obviously that information has been included today. The 22nd of January meeting has a private report on children's connection services added, and that's for pre-decision scrutiny. And the March the 5th meeting has quite a heavy workload, so I understand the chair and Pam will be having some discussions on how best to deal with the workload of that. But I do have a note here from Pam that Trent McLean update report is moved from the 11th December to that 5th of March meeting. I also have a note here permission to tender for emergency accommodation, violence against women, domestic abuse, sexual violence report that moved from the 25th of November to the 5th of March. And also we have an income generation report which has been deleted, as this will be covered by an information session for members which will take place in January, and you understand further details will be provided as soon as they're available. And then just finally, following the meeting on the 14th of October, a Western Bay Drug Commission update report has been added to the 5th of March. And also I understand that the next civic year programmed in May, hopefully that corporate parenting will be added to that first meeting effectively. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's it. Right, okay. So is we done now?
Yes, we're on urgent items, actually.
Yeah, that's it.
And then we have one last item, which is
right, agenda item 8, urgent items. I have no urgent items.
Because we've got item 10B, which is the homeless assessment, prevention and support services.
Yeah, we haven't got those a lot of information because most of the items that we covered in the other one.
You don't need to do that one now.
No,
okay. Okay, so if you maybe if you just explain that.
Right, okay, so basically the last report, basically, all the questions that we had on that, we've already asked in, obviously, over the other reports. So there is not going to be questions on that one, 10B. So again, that the report is for information as well only. And I think I can honestly say it's close to meeting. Thank you, Steph. Thank you. Only a few minutes over.